Supremes, The Temptations, New Edition, names that built the foundation of R&B and soul music. But behind every harmony was a betrayal. Behind every smile was resentment burning so hot it couldn't be contained. Before this video ends, you'll hear about a Motown legend who died broke on welfare after being thrown out of her own group. A founding member replaced while on stage mid-performance. And a fistfight so vicious between brothers that police had to be called to the recording studio. These aren't just breakups, these are destructions. Let's begin. Number 12, The Dramatics, When the Lead Singer Became the Enemy Detroit. 1964, 5 young men formed a group called The Dramatics and spent years grinding in local clubs, perfecting a sound built on raw emotion and tight harmonies. By 1971, they finally broke through with What You See Is What You Get. The song hit number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. Yes, your music to my heart. They were on Stax Records. They had arrived, but the success exposed cracks that had been forming for years. Ron Banks was the lead vocalist. His voice was the signature sound. Producers loved him, the label loved him, and that created a massive problem. The other members, particularly Larry Demps and Willie Ford, felt invisible. They'd rehearsed just as hard. They'd sacrificed just as much, but every interview focused on Ron. Every article mentioned Ron. The resentment built slowly, or then exploded. The worst part came during their 1973 tour, when Ron Banks started negotiating solo opportunities behind the group's back. Willie Ford found out by accident when a promoter mentioned Ron's upcoming solo showcase. The confrontation that followed backstage was so heated that venue security had to step in. Trust was shattered in a single moment. By the mid-70s, members started leaving. Some were pushed out, others walked away, exhausted by the constant battle for recognition. Ron Banks kept the name and continued performing with different lineups for decades. But the original magic? That died the moment jealousy became more important than the music. Willie Ford later said in an interview that the group could have been bigger than the Temptations if egos hadn't destroyed them first. Think about that. They had the talent, but they couldn't survive their own success. Number 11. The Manhattans, the coup that nobody saw coming. Another original member later admitted the guilt never fully went away. Please, don't you... The group continued for decades after. They had more hits, but some successes feel hollow when they're built on someone else's grave.
Quick question, are you subscribed? If not, you're part of the 99% who watch and disappear. Here's the problem. YouTube won't show you our next video unless you subscribe. So if you want more untold music stories like this, hit that button right now. 2 seconds. Do it before you forget.
Number 10, Heatwave, the British invasion destroyed by American ego. Heatwave wasn't American, but they defined American R&B in the late 70s. Boogie Nights, Always and Forever, The Groove Line. These songs are still played at every old school party. The group was fronted by Johnny Wilder Jr., whose voice was smooth, controlled, and instantly recognizable. But the creative genius behind the sound was keyboardist Rod Temperton, who wrote most of their hits. Here's where the jealousy started. Rod was getting recognition from producers and other artists. Quincy Jones noticed him and eventually pulled him away to work on Michael Jackson's Off the Wall and Thriller. Rod wrote Rock With You. He wrote Thriller. He became a legend. Meanwhile, our Johnny Wilder was stuck watching the man who made Heatwave's sound become more famous than the group itself. The final straw came when Rod didn't show up to a scheduled recording session in 1978 because he was working with Quincy Jones instead. Johnny and the other members showed up to an empty studio and realized their songwriter had already moved on. The betrayal cut deeper than any argument ever could. The other members felt abandoned, betrayed. They tried to continue without Rod, but it wasn't the same. Then tragedy struck. Johnny Wilder was paralyzed in a car accident in 1979. The group limped along for a few more years, but the heart was gone. Heatwave should have been massive for decades. Instead, jealousy and circumstance destroyed them right at their peak. Number 9, Shalamar, the manufactured group that became too real. Shalamar was created in 1977 by Soul Train producer Dick Griffey. It wasn't organic. It was a calculated business move. But when Jody Watley, Jeffrey Daniel, and Howard Hewitt came together, something magical happened. A night to remember. The second time around. Dead giveaway. They had the hits, they had the look, they were everywhere. But behind the scenes, resentment was festering. Jody Watley felt like she was being sexualized and objectified, while the men got to be taken seriously as artists. Jeffrey Daniel was an incredible dancer who felt his contributions were being downplayed. And Howard Hewitt? He knew his voice was the moneymaker, and he wanted to be compensated accordingly. The breaking point happened during their 1983 European tour, when contract negotiations fell apart publicly. Jody and Jeffrey discovered they were making significantly less than Howard, despite equal billing. The promoter accidentally revealed the pay disparity, and the remaining tour dates were performed in complete silence off stage. By 1983, Jody and Jeffrey left. Howard tried to keep the group going with new members, but it was over. The chemistry was gone. Years later, Jody admitted in interviews that the three of them barely spoke during the final tours. They'd perform, smile for the cameras, then go to separate hotel rooms and avoid each other. The silence was louder than any argument. Shalamar was proof that you can't fake chemistry forever. Eventually, the cracks show. Number 8, the Isley Brothers, When Family Loyalty Shatters. The Isley Brothers are legends.
Touch me, baby. Give me what you got.
From Shout in 1959 to Between the Sheets in 1983, they dominated multiple decades and multiple genres.
Then a man said, sexy lady.
Doo-wop, soul, funk, rock. They did it all, but the family bond that made them great also nearly destroyed them.
Drive me crazy, drive me wild.
The classic lineup included Ronald, Rudolph and O'Kelly Isley, plus younger brothers Ernie and Marvin, and brother-in-law Chris Jasper.
Came home with this, you low down dirty woman.
For years, they worked in perfect harmony, but by the early 80s, tension was building.
Back to where you come from.
But baby,
Wait now.
The younger members wanted to modernize the sound. The older members wanted to stick with what worked.
Hit the street, your is grand.
Now, Mr. Biggs, before you.
Ernie and Marvin felt disrespected during creative meetings. Chris felt like an outsider despite writing and producing some of their biggest hits.
You're done.
Wait, how you know my name, son?
Honey, wait, I was gone.
The final argument happened on Christmas Day, 1983, at a family gathering.
Wanna tell you.
Move, this cat looks real familiar.
What should have been a celebration turned into a screaming match about publishing rights and production credits.
Now don't I know you from somewhere a long time ago?
Rudolph walked out and never came back to another family holiday. Blood couldn't heal what business had destroyed.
Go.
No, I don't think so.
In 1984, the group split. Ernie, Marvin, and Chris formed Isley Jasper Isley and had their own success.
Yeah, I feel I know you, brother, very well.
But the original magic was fractured. Then O'Kelly died in 1986.
No, you're mistaking me for somebody else.
Rudolph left the music industry entirely and became a Christian minister, later saying the industry had poisoned his family relationships.
Yeah. Can't you see two men are talking?
Ronald continued as the Isley Brothers, but it was never the same. The saddest part? They were blood. They grew up together. They built an empire together, and jealousy still tore them apart. Number 7, Switch, when DeBarge stole the spotlight. Switch was one of the tightest funk soul groups of the late 70s and early 80s. There'll Never Be, I Call Your Name, Love Over and Over Again. They had hits. They had Jermaine Jackson executive producing. They were positioned for long-term success, but one member's rise destroyed everything. Bobby DeBarge was the falsetto voice that made Switch stand out. His runs were angelic. His tone was unmistakable. And the industry noticed. Motown started grooming Bobby's younger siblings, forming the group DeBarge. Suddenly, Bobby was being pulled in two directions. Switch felt betrayed. They'd built something together, and now their lead singer was prioritizing his family's group over theirs. The jealousy turned ugly during a 1981 recording session when Bobby brought his brother El DeBarge to the studio without permission. El sang on one of Switch's tracks as a demo, and when the other members heard it, they accused Bobby of trying to replace them with his own family. The session ended with equipment being thrown.
You and I.
The jealousy was brutal. Members started accusing Bobby of sabotaging Switch sessions to save his best ideas for DeBarge.
Show me.
Whether that was true or not didn't matter. The trust was gone. Bobby eventually left Switch entirely. The group tried to continue without him, but fans moved on. And here's the tragedy. Bobby DeBarge's life spiraled into drug addiction. He died in 1995 at just 39 years old. His potential completely wasted. Switch could have been legends. Instead, they became a footnote. Number 6, The Emotions. Sisters torn apart by outside interference. The Emotions were 3 actual sisters, Wanda, Sheila, and Jeanette Hutchinson. They grew up singing gospel in Chicago and transitioned to soul in the early 70s. By 1977, they released Best of My Love, produced by Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire. The song hit #1 and won a Grammy. They were on top of the world, But success brought interference. Morris White and his team at Columbia Records started making creative decisions without consulting the sisters. Which songs to release, how to arrange vocals, what image to project. The emotions felt like puppets. Wanda, the eldest, tried to push back and demand more control. The label didn't want to hear it. The situation exploded when Columbia Records tried to replace Jeanette with a non-family member in 1979 without consulting Wanda or Sheila. The label felt Jeanette's voice wasn't distinctive enough. When Wanda found out, she threatened to walk away from a $1 million contract. The label backed down, but the damage was done. Tensions exploded during the recording of their follow-up albums. Sheila felt Wanda was being too aggressive with the label and damaging their relationship with Morris White. Jeanette tried to stay neutral, but eventually had to pick sides. By the early 80s, the hits dried up. The group continued performing, but the bond was damaged. They blamed each other for mishandling their peak moment. Years later, in interviews, they admitted they should have been more united. But by then, it was too late. The emotions had one shining moment, and internal conflict made sure it stayed just one. Number 5. The OJs, the replacement that changed everything, Philadelphia.
I've been looking for my day.
1958, 5 teenagers formed a group called the Mascots.
Don't you ever
They changed the name to the OJs in 1963 after a local DJ who supported them. For years, they struggled.
think about leaving this heart of mine.
Minor hits, constant touring, barely scraping by.
Bone to the bone. 'Cause it's
Then in 1972, they signed with Philadelphia International Records and released Backstabbers. Finally, they had arrived.
you I'm thinking about pleasing. Give you
But that success came at a cost. The classic lineup that recorded Backstabbers,
all the love you needin'.
Love Train, and For the Love of Money only included 3 of the original 5 members. William Powell and Bill Isles were gone.
Don't go. Stay.
William Powell had health issues, but Bill Isles was forced out.
And I'm so
The meeting where Bill Isles was removed lasted less than 10 minutes.
oh, we're
Producers Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff told him his voice didn't fit the new direction.
one of a kind.
Eddie Levitt and Walter Williams sat silent, unable to defend their friend of over a decade.
Ooh, baby girl, I need.
Bill walked out and never spoke to them again.
We get along just fine.
The story varies depending on who tells it, but the consensus is that when Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff took over production,
Oh, baby.
they wanted a tighter, smaller group. Bill Isles was told he wasn't needed anymore. Just like that.
I got what you want. You got what I
After over a decade of struggle, right when the payday arrived, he was removed.
love. And we were made.
He spent the rest of his life bitter, watching Eddie Levert, Walter Williams, and the others become legends while he faded into obscurity.
Oh,
The OJs went on to have one of the most successful runs in R&B history.
'cause it gets better with time.
But that success was built on the broken dreams of the men who got left behind.
And I'm so glad.
Number 4, New Edition, the boy band blueprint for Betrayal.
And I'll never be the same until you are mine.
New Edition wasn't from the 60s or 70s, but their story connects directly to the Motown Betrayal playbook perfected decades earlier.
Listen to me, let me tell you why.
5 kids from Boston: Bobby Brown, Ricky Bell, Michael Bivins, Ronnie DeVoe, and Ralph Tresvant.
You all coming down on me, trying to tell me how my life is supposed to be. I know you.
They were discovered in 1981 and became the biggest teen act in R&B. Candy Girl, Cool It Now, Mr. Telephone Man.
The pace, you can't mess with her mind. She feels the same, she'll let you know just.
They were everywhere, but their manager, Maurice Starr, was stealing from them. The group was selling millions of records and seeing almost none of the money.
Prepare yourself and be ready to go. And I hope this message stays in your mind.
When they finally discovered the truth and fired Starr, the internal dynamics shifted.
You almost lost a girl who was right on time. Here's one more thing that you got to know.
Bobby Brown felt like he was the breakout star and deserved more. The others resented his ego.
Just cool it down and stay in control.
The final straw came when Bobby showed up 3 hours late to a music video shoot in 1985 because he was recording a solo demo.
Got to cool it now. Watch out.
The other 4 members waited in full wardrobe while Bobby prioritized his own career.
Gonna lose control.
Ralph Tresvant later said that was the moment they all knew Bobby was already gone mentally. By 1986, Bobby was out.
Better slow it down.
The group said it was mutual. Bobby said he was pushed. The truth is somewhere in the middle, soaked in jealousy.
Is it gonna fall in love?
Bobby went solo and became massive. New Edition continued and also found success. But the bond was broken. They've reunited multiple times over the years, but the original trust never fully returned. Ralph later admitted in interviews that jealousy almost destroyed all of them.
And all I keep thinking about is her.
They were kids who didn't know how to handle fame, and adults exploited that innocence.
In my arms.
Number 3. The Dells, 5 decades together, but at what cost? The Dells formed in 1952 in Harvey, Illinois. 5 high school friends who loved doo-wop and dreamed of making it big. And they did. Sort of. They had hits across multiple decades. Oh, What a Night in 1956, then again as a re-recorded version in 1969. Stay in My Corner. Give Your Baby a Standing Ovation. They were one of the longest-running groups in R&B history, performing together for over 5 decades. But longevity doesn't mean harmony. Marvin Jr. was the lead vocalist and the face of the group. The other members, particularly Vern Allison and Chuck Barksdale, felt like background players in their own careers. They'd show up, sing their parts, collect a check, but there was no joy. By the 90s, they had separate dressing rooms and separate tour buses, despite being in the same group. They performed together but lived completely separate lives. Vern Allison once went an entire 3-month tour without having a single conversation with Marvin Jr., beyond what was necessary on stage. Vern later admitted in an interview that by the 80s and 90s, they were barely friends. They were co-workers. The resentment was quiet but constant. They never had a big public blow-up. They never aired their issues in the press. But the silence was its own kind of destruction. They stayed together because breaking up felt like admitting failure. So they performed, smiled, and quietly resented each other for decades. The Dells are proof that staying together doesn't always mean success. Sometimes it just means prolonged suffering. Number 2. The Temptations, Motown's most violent implosion. The Temptations are Motown royalty. My Girl, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, Papa Was a Rolling Stone. But their legacy is soaked in addiction, violence, and betrayal. This is where the fistfight happens. And it's worse than you think. David Ruffin joined in 1964 and became the lead voice during their peak years. His voice was raw power, but his ego was just as big. He started showing up late, missing rehearsals, demanding that the group be renamed David Ruffin and the Temptations. The other members were furious. Otis Williams, the founder and de facto leader, had enough. In 1968, they fired David. But David didn't accept it. He showed up uninvited to a concert at the arena in Philadelphia in 1968. Walked on stage during the middle of their performance. I grabbed a microphone from the stand and tried to sing. The other members kept performing while security physically dragged him off. 10,000 fans watched in confusion as one of Motown's biggest stars was removed like a trespasser. But the chaos didn't stop there. Paul Williams, one of the original members, struggled with alcoholism and depression. The group tried to support him, but the pressure was too much. In 1973, Paul was found dead in a car with a gunshot wound to the head. Officially ruled a suicide, but people close to him believe the stress from the group's internal politics contributed to his death. Eddie Kendricks left in 1971 after constant fights with Otis Williams over money and control. Dennis Edwards, who replaced David Ruffin, had violent outbursts. He physically fought with other members backstage. And one altercation during a tour in Detroit in the mid-70s was so bad that police were called to the venue. Witnesses said Dennis threw a chair at another member during an argument about song arrangements. The Temptations kept performing for decades. The name survived. One man can play. But it was a revolving door of trauma, addiction, and unresolved pain. The music was beautiful. The reality was hell. Number 1. The Supremes, the cruelest betrayal in music history. The Supremes were the crown jewel of Motown. Diana Ross, Mary Wilson, and Florence Ballard. 3 girls from the Brewster Douglas housing projects in Detroit who became the most successful American vocal group of the 60s. 12 #1 singles. They appeared on Ed Sullivan more than the Beatles. They were untouchable. But behind the sequined gowns and perfect harmonies was a betrayal so calculated, so cold, that its effects are still felt today. Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown, fell in love with Diana Ross. Not just professionally, romantically, obsessively. And he made a decision that destroyed Florence Ballard's life. Starting in 1964, Berry began pushing Diana to the front. More solo lines, more camera time, better positioning on stage. By 1967, the group was officially renamed Diana Ross and the Supremes. Mary Wilson was furious but stayed silent. Florence Ballard spoke up, and that was her death sentence. Florence started missing rehearsals, showing up late, drinking.
come easy. It's a game of give and take.
Berry Gordy called it unprofessional behavior, but people close to Florence said she was heartbroken. She'd co-founded the group. She'd worked just as hard as Diana. And she was being erased. The final humiliation came during a performance in New Orleans in April 1967. Florence, frustrated and hurt, sang off key intentionally during one song to protest being sidelined. Berry Gordy was in the audience. He didn't speak to her after the show. 2 months later, her lawyers received termination papers. In July 1967, Florence Ballard was fired. She was given a settlement of less than $140,000 and forced to sign away her rights to future royalties. Within a few years, the money was gone. Florence ended up on welfare, living in a Detroit housing project with her 3 children. She died in 1976 at the age of 32 from a blood clot. Broke, forgotten, destroyed. Meanwhile, Diana Ross became one of the biggest stars in the world. She went solo in 1970 and never looked back. Berry Gordy made sure of it. Mary Wilson spent the next 4 decades fighting to restore Florence's legacy and get her the recognition she deserved. But the damage was done. The Supremes were the blueprint for how the music industry prioritizes one star and discards everyone else. And Florence Ballard paid the ultimate price.
Hard to break, no.